So by now I'm sure you're all acquainted with my fascination of schizophrenic meltdowns in the form of movies or video games. And so today we'll be taking a look at the Indigo Parallel, which was brought to my attention by one of my commenters. The Indigo Parallel, right off the bat of it, from the first glance, can very easily be described as psychedelic. And I know people get uppity when I use words like that, but that's how the creator himself describes this game. Before we get into the game, I do want to take a little bit of a look at its creator, Chris Danelon. Chris Danelon apparently used to work in the showbiz from the looks of it as a VFX artist. He does have a YouTube channel where he likes to show off a lot of the things he's done, although his YouTube channel actually isn't all that much bigger than mine. Though, I mean, statistically, he is just over double me in every metric, including views and subscriber count. Well, as of time of recording this video, though given the fact that any brainlet on this website gets like 10 million subscribers, well, we're about the same size, I'd say. And he is very clearly proud of his work, the Indigo Parallel. Most of his channel appears to be dedicated to something called The Expanse, but I haven't bothered to look into that because that's not the subject of today's video. There are 2 videos on his channel that I found about the Indigo Parallel. There are probably more, but I haven't looked that deep. I'm just outing myself as being a Wikipedia scholar at this point. On his channel we can find the trailers for the Indigo Parallel, and as interesting as they are, I'm actually wanting to look at what it can tell us. Now, store what we're going to learn here in your memory banks because we're going to use it later. The description to the cinematic trailer tells us that we assume the role of Tom, a man hopelessly in love with Daisy, who embarks on a psychedelic adventure through a bizarre and unpredictable world. Inspired by the captivating and surreal gameplay of LSD Dream Emulator and the narrative experimentation of the Stanley Parable. And if you've played the game or you've seen gameplay of it, there will be gameplay of it uploaded to my channel, by the way, soon enough after this video comes out. Then you can see a lot of the direct inspirations, but we will get onto that later. So with this background knowledge out of the way, I believe we should get right into the Indigo Parallel, and I will take you through at least my journey of what I experienced while playing this game. So when you first load into the game, you'll notice that you've been dropped through some sort of elevator, pod, I'm unsure what it is, though the first thing that will be looking right at you in the face will be a camera, which will say some random line along the lines of like, status, insert funny here.
Oh, what?
Oh!
This reality?
What the fuck did he just say?
It just saved the game.
From this point, you take a right to the only door in the room. This door, however, will diverge into 2 more doors, which gives you your first choice of the game. Which path will you take? Now, the door to your left will be an immediate walk straight down, but the door right ahead of you will open up to these little robot Roomba things on the ground, where there will then once again be another choice between 2 more pathways which you can go down. This is a persistent theme throughout the game, that there are always other ways you can go, that there are many branching pathways. Everywhere you turn there always seems to be another corridor leading somewhere else. Even touching the right item, or wrong item depending on your opinion, can lead to different routes and entirely different little spring off areas of the game which you can explore, and then afterwards it'll put you right back to where you were. Everything you see is very surrealistic, from stick figures to eyes with heads, to wacky little game shows, to shoot 'em ups, all the way to like flowers with eyes. There is a persistent theme with eyes in this game, by the way. Even like flashy colours, flesh walls, the colonials from All Tomorrows. It is very surrealistic. Nothing seems like it makes any sense. Or at least that might be your initial impression. Remember back when I read out the description of the trailer, there's clearly a story going on here. There are things we're being told by, well, the symbolism of what we're being shown, as well as some of the things we hear people say, because throughout the game, people are talking to you. You do unravel a story. Throughout the game, more and more unravels itself, and things certainly have more of a sinister undertone than what they might first appear. But to get a better understanding of this story, I believe we should continue our journey by going down the left-hand side door in order to see what horrors might await us. So going down the left-hand side really kicks off into the weird very quickly. You'll go down a corridor, it will seem dark, dystopian, very cyberpunky, and once you hit that button, eyes will appear in front of you, and the corridor you previously came down will now just be a corridor of flesh. And it is in this corridor that the face of a girl appears to us. This beautiful babe, off the face of it, I would assume is Daisy, the girl that we are supposedly so in love with. At first, this path will lead us to a large woods at which we have to turn on a bunch of machines, and later on we will end up finding like a Japanese style house. And Japan seems to be a constant theme along this route because we end up going to New Tokyo at some point. After, of course, a quick stop to the back rooms, as any good trip to Tokyo involves. Though the more important thing which we can learn from this route is a section where we can see all this bamboo growing out of the ground, and whenever we hit these egg-looking things, we hear a little snippet of information, kind of like our character, Tom, speaking. We can hear Tom seemingly just become more disenfranchised with himself. He is slowly just hating the things he once liked, and refusing to take his medication, and confesses how he hates the fact a psychologist branded him as being mentally unstable. We can probably discern that Daisy is likely Tom's girlfriend, and they are well, she seems to be coping with his mental illness, and he seems to be not coping very well with it. As this goes on, the room becomes eerier and darker, and Tom eventually confesses to hitting himself in the head with a katana. I assume that's meant to be like him self-harming, right? But that's a little bit extreme. You know when people do like self-harm to like make themselves feel pain, you're not going to be feeling much after hitting yourself in the head with a katana. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. But I can't imagine that this is gonna end well for Tom. Maybe this whole game is just him seeing God after slicing his head open, actually. Eventually we see what kind of looks like the girl from The Ring crawling about. After the Ring girl catches us, we are sent back to the back rooms. Now, in the back rooms area, there are a few trails you can follow. I at this point followed the Trail of Eyes, which led me to a City of Eye People. This part of the game seemed to have a reoccurring theme of, well, eyes, certainly, which a lot of the game does, but it personifies them more as people. We see them as these stick figures, which are somewhat normal as eye people stick figures can be. Of course, it doesn't take it long to get psychedelic and weird again, as we see these like angel looking eye creatures, and eventually it takes the exact opposite turn as things seem to get a bit more culty and demonic and ritualistic, with one of them being killed and sacrificed. And after pushing through all the eyes, we're brought to a computer which tells us that it's time for us to see the truth. Pressing yes will show you the effects of what will probably happen if you hit your head with a katana, as a split open head starts begging in text-to-speech about how much it loves Daisy. However, moving past the head, we will hear a female voice begging him to take his pills. This is obviously Daisy reasoning with our buddy Tom, even going as far to like veiledly threatening to leave him if he doesn't take his pills. And then you're exposed to what is probably the funniest joke of the entire game. You have finished it and become a god. Oh.
Have I? I don't feel...
No, you didn't finish it, dickhead. I'm the god here.
Well, fuck you. I was there.
I hope it... I hope it was worth it.
I was part of this epic journey.
No, it was. I'm going to refund it and give my money back. It is now time
to dab.
To introduce... Oh, pause there. The Indigo Perpendicular. That joke, I think, was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, I'll never hear anything as funny as that again. Like, I think all comedians, they should just stop. Like, once you've heard that joke, everything else, you just become numb to it. Right? After this point, after hearing that joke, your life is just going to be a downward, like... just a downward slide of depression, right? It's just a slump, because you will never hear anything as funny as that joke you've just heard. And all of you having heard this joke, right? You know what? I might just, you probably just kill yourselves at this point. Like, you're never going to be happy again, because this is the happiest moment of your life, hearing that joke. Obviously, don't kill yourself until you've gifted me your bank account in your will, but when you do that, then you can off yourself. Anyway, yeah, we're talking about a game. Alright, so after this, it brings us to this little town area filled with all these horrific monstrosities. And the Dylan Klebold in me just immediately started opening fire. Although, to be honest, if the students of Columbine looked anything like this, then we'd probably praise the shooters as unsung heroes. that might get cut out, that. And afterwards, it kind of just brings us back to the loading screen to start all over again. And that was, well, the end, question mark, of the Indigo Parallel, right? So there is obviously a lot more to it. It wants you to replay it. There are many diverging paths. But I suppose you could say that is one of the endings. Though, as you'll find with this game very quickly, what seems like the ending is never really the ending. So hopping back in for a rerun of the game, let's go down another path that we didn't go down before, and that is the door straight ahead. Immediately, you'll see that this just diverges into two more pathways. Heading over to the door that contains the light bulb, we're taken on quite a long dark journey through, I don't really understand, it's very metallic and very creepy, though the first notable point we get to, in fact, is a cinema, where we immediately begin fighting these eye ghost monsters. The weird trees with eyes will also appear, but if you go this route the first time, they don't actually appear. It seems you need to get that specific ending where you massacre all the little gribbly monsters to actually get them to appear. So we can learn from this that going different routes actually changes the way in which other routes will play. The game kinda takes on a bit more of an energetic shooter at this point, less of a horror game. Though after a while of fighting through these big eye ghosts, it does go back to, well, being a horror. As we're taken to this large chamber with another ghost locked in a cage. You can either choose to execute or release the ghost. Originally, when I played this off recording, I chose to execute the ghost, but on the recording I chose to release it. At which the ghost traps you in the cage instead, and you get teleported somewhere else. And after wandering around this new blue area we found ourselves in, we'll begin to see people, well, what looks to be people, and over our screens will flash these, recordings of clay statues. Clearly somebody has just taken a camera and started recording these things. Where Chris went to record all this, I have no idea. Did he just go to an art museum? Does he have these? Does he make these? Does he have these just littered in his house? I don't know. These are questions for Chris. After this, it takes us right back to the start where the door will once again open on the left hand side of us and we can go explore more. However, that's not what I did. I went to the door on the right again, which had a new way we could actually go. There was a new little function. And this, well, took us back to the ice stick figures. After the exact same journey, it took me right back to the Indigo Perpendicular, the funniest joke you'll have ever heard. Almost as funny as Rick turning himself into a pickle, only this time the person introducing us to it is a woman instead. And you know what? It took me right back to the start, and I just started playing it again. This time I went through the third route we could go at the start, which straps us into a little pod and forces us into a little blue wall portal thing. At which we're taken into this back room, another backrooms looking area in fact, where there are all these little monsters that if we get too close, they'll explode.
Hey Phil, ask this fellow if he has cake.
Do you have cake?
I
don't think he has cake. Things here get quite a bit more horrifying, where some block with arms is clearly following us. This journey will lead us to a side-scroller where we are just a ghost chasing an eye, though after that we just see all of these severed heads in separate rooms looking at screens with different weird things on it, such as just lots and lots of eyes. And then, well, after this, we're a little Roomba robot scuttling around, and we then have to solve a couple puzzles, and we are just then back on our feet. We come into a very large, very bright room, which has this thing with 3 eyes and these sticks swirling around in the middle, and if we touch it, we're introduced to this horrifying looking little realm of hands and eyes, but touching the thing once again brings us right back into, well, where we were before, where we can walk into this pillar and see some nondescript individual just sleeping on a bed, and touching them will lead to us looking up into the sky and slowly going through this swirl. But this bit of the game, I think, is one of the most interesting bits if we actually want to understand what's going on. You see, we end up in a little room where there's this blue screen, and a lady starts telling us things as if she's monologuing to herself. She tells us that can rest easy knowing that she's come to this place. What place she's actually come to, I don't know. Stating that she doesn't know if she can forgive him. Him, assumedly, is going to be Tom. She proceeds to say that she knows that work has been stressing out, but what he did to her and the little one has been unforgivable, and that the path to forgiveness is called the Indigo Perpendicular. And that unlocks another one of the endings, where we get a little card next to our computer. On my next replay, I went down the same path we went the first time, except the woman's face was replaced with just, well, a slab of meat. And the foresty area with all the little generators we have to turn on, well, it's quite a bit brighter this time. Though, now when we turn it on, it actually leads us to this statue of Buddha. I think it's Buddha. I'm not familiar with Buddhism. I'm sure all the Tibetans in my comment section would savage me about that one. Or the Sri Lankans, that's a big Buddhist country too. The Buddha will then explode into blood, and this will then bring us back into the back rooms. Now, following the green trail of blood will actually lead us to a dead ghost. We find on the wall an image of a bloody knife, and eyes and mouths just litter each face of the wall. Face of the wall. You see, that there's a joke in there. See if you can find it. And further in will bring us to this little room with a VHS tape and a VHS tape player. And, well, if we naturally play the VHS tape, we will get a weird image that begins spitting green vomit at us. And we'll be returned to the start for the left door to open again and for us to start a new journey. Now, this time I had gone down the route of where all the little Buddha heads were shooting lasers out of their mouths. And it'll bring us to this area with these Japanese shrines, with all these, I assume that's meant to be Daisy, these little heads, but I can't imagine it's an exact representation of Daisy. Your girl's head looks like a Tic Tac. After that, we then come to this very brightly coloured room where we'll find this girl with a hand for a head. If we decide to upskirt her, we'll be taking this little Doom level. We have to shoot up these little Roomba bots and these little eye things shooting us. It's an alright bit. From there, we explore a few more weird and wonderful areas until we come to a fork in our road. There's a lovely brighter path and a horrible darker more evil looking path. Naturally I went for the brighter path to the left. Going down there led me to a game of Star Fox. And some more very unfortunate looking things. We'll then be shown imagery of like eyes, birds, fish, all manner of peculiar things put together. This imagery here is not particularly scary, it's not sinister, it's just rather strange as it doesn't really seem to fit. But then again, a lot of the stuff in this game seems to fit very loosely. And that gives us our last ending, giving us all these 3 cards by our computer, which is where things start to get even more interesting actually. It takes us out of this computer and into this strange world of just floating rocks and pink skies, I assume. There are these eyes that look around at us and they will tell us things. The eyes are saying things like, "I'm cold and lonely, please help me." Or things like, "Don't expect me to be around when you lose it." Though, interestingly enough, one said, "Tom did not kill me," which implies that there may be more to this story that we know, but then it also says, "Tom killed me." So, what it actually means by that, I have no idea. And we are confronted with this strange creature that calls me the light of her life, which, yeah, you and many other women, honey, get in line. I'm a real ladies man if you didn't know. It says, or I guess she says, because that is, well, that's a woman if I ever saw it. She says that we can now loop this world endlessly, that she loves us, yes, do you see what I said? I'm a real ladies man. But that aside, that, you know, like, something about eyes, I don't know how to wrap my head around it. And then a face kind of just shoots out of the computer. Everything gets really blue and we're just shoved back to the start again. Obviously to look more for whatever's going on. And I'm sure that there is a lot more that goes on in this game that I have not yet seen. Now, when I get around to uploading my gameplay of this, I may carry on playing and upload more gameplay clips so you can see what happens after this point. But for now, I assume this is the ending, but as we've already learnt, what seems to be the ending never seems to actually be the ending. So, what's my analysis? What can I interpret the story as being? What are your thoughts?
Part 1 of a 13-part series.
What are your thoughts so far?
My thoughts
Actually,
so far
wait.
Say it to the anime girl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell me.
Okay, so my thoughts. They're quite creative, these games, I guess. They are. Obviously, sometimes I feel like I don't know whether I'm missing a deeper meaning or I just think I'm missing a deeper meaning. The bit towards the end where we saw the big red head that was split open, that is what happens if you bash yourself in the head with the katana too much.
Yeah.
I feel like right at the end, the Indigo Perpendicular,
Best joke ever,
when
no
you get
doubt.
questioned, when you get questioned about, like, you know, your first instinct is to kill, is it? Blah blah blah. I think in that situation, most people are going to have one of three reactions, which is either run, curl up into a ball and cry, or start killing everything that's in the immediate enemy.
From what we have, there's a guy called Tom. He's a bit of a schizo and refuses to take his meds. He gets stressed out by work. He's obsessively in love with this girl called Daisy, has a kid with her, and then he just snaps and kills the both of them. And I would assume that this game, like what we're seeing, is his way of coping with what he's done. Now, what is all the symbolism? What does it all mean? I'm sure half of it is just been thrown in there because, Chris thinks it's just cool looking, which is good on him. I mean, it's his game. We're not like English teachers here. Not everything has to have a meaning. Or if, I don't know, the little dead ghost, like interpretation of his dead kid or some shit like that, you could interpret it like that if you wanted to. Like, not everything is just entirely meaningless or just put in there for sure. There is symbolism behind a lot of the things we're seeing. And so I would agree that a lot of what we're seeing is just the Tom's way of coping with him killing his wife and kids. So the whole game is just one big cope. In the same way that you sat on your ass at 11 PM on a Sunday night watching my channel is one big cope for the fact that you gotta get back to your Mackey's job tomorrow. Get to bed, wagey. I'm sure all the subscribers I have left after making that joke just have a humiliation fetish. And if my whole subscriber base just ends up as a bunch of young 20-year-old girls with humiliation fetishes, then, well, that's a fate I think I can live with. So after that analysis, I think we should review it as a game. Like, as its value of it being a video game, how good actually is it? Let's start with the graphics. I don't want to say too much about this, because I don't think every game needs to be massive, high resolution, big budget, whatever to be good. It doesn't, but the graphics do also need to be easy on the eyes, which big budget, high resolution games can be difficult on the eyes, granted. And so how is this game to look at? It's not too bad. I can imagine there's a reason as to why a lot of it is very dark, but you'll be seeing a lot of flat PNGs about. Though this visual style, weirdly enough, lends itself very well into its weird psychedelic nature, because it doesn't want to feel real, really. It wants to make not very much sense to your brain. So in terms of visual appearance, it's not particularly good, but you know, you have to factor in this was made by like one guy. There is a lot to the game, and he doesn't have all the resources in the world, so it's good for what it is, and it doesn't at all take anything away from the game. Not like in games like, you know, Agony, which things would just merge into other things, or textures didn't really make sense. For the Indigo Parallel, its visual style suits it well, and it doesn't take away anything from the actual game itself. Most of the gameplay, granted, is a bit all over the place. It directly says that in the trailer. To be honest, it's a bit of a difficult one for me to pinpoint, because really you're just walking from one place to the next. Now, I actually don't have an issue with this, because I do like the idea of just walking through different branching paths and seeing what there is. This game comes under in the same sort of thing that Scorn does, where it's more of an experience. But every now and then, it'll jump into some random kind of gameplay, like it'll become an FPS out of nowhere, or it'll become like Star Fox. And as weird as this is, as strange as it is to just do that, to like get into all these different gameplay mechanics, and they just show up and then never show up again, like only in that spot, it does actually help to break up what is actually going on. Like, the pacing of the whole game doesn't feel like a drag. The only bit that really does was that Doom level, and to be honest, that's just because I kept dying over and over. To be honest, it's paced very well, and you never really get stuck anywhere because everything's very obvious to you. I might levy a bit of criticism at the use of text-to-speech rather than voice actors, but it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, you probably didn't have like any money for voice actors or whatever, or no money for, I don't know, any better text-to-speech. I don't know a situation or why you used that, but using the same sort of text-to-speech that like every meme channel uses is to me the goofiest thing and kind of throws you off. That might be intentional, to be honest, but it wouldn't have been my personal choice. And so this is where things get a bit more interesting when trying to review this game, because it's like all the criticisms I have to levy at this game are like, they're all personal choices. Like, maybe I personally do it a bit different, right? Because when I talk about things like Scorn or Agony or like Mad God, I do put in tidbits of like, I think if you'd done it in this way, it would have made it better. Like when I explain how Scorn should be more maze-like, or Agony could have benefited from a little bit more time in the cooker. Watch my reviews on them if you want to go figure out what I'm on about there. But that aside, there's not very many criticisms I can really levy at this game, because it's like, it is really just its own little thing, and it does what it sets out to do, like, perfectly. It's not trying to be anything big or phantasmal. It's just trying to be a cute little game that does its own little thing, and it does all that very well. Like, the pacing is very good. Its storytelling is very lackluster, but the thing is, it's kind of meant to be. It's meant to be just weird and nonsensical half the time. So the kind of things that you would levy as criticisms out of the games, this game kind of makes that its entire gimmick. And truth be told, it's pretty good at it. The game is obviously not like the perfect catch-all great game. It's like very specific for, you know, you wanting to go and just always on your toes about wondering what's next, whatever weird thing is gonna come about. And I don't know if I'd say it's for everyone. It's certainly got its like gory moments, but it's very goofy and silly and nonsensical sometimes, and it's just a confusing game to wrap your brain around altogether. But it's good, right? I'd give it like a 5 out of 5. I don't even do ratings on my channel. It's pretty good. That's my rating. Final answer. Pretty good out of 10. And looking at its reviews on Steam, everybody does seem to like it, though it has a shockingly low 38 reviews. Part of me feels like it doesn't feel right that this game is just so unknown. And I was lucky enough to have a commenter tell me about this fun little project. I've particularly enjoyed it. I do quite like smaller games like this, and it's very much worth the money. It was only about like a tenner. So if you're able to, you should definitely pick up the game. It's certainly not expensive enough to warrant buyer's remorse, so as poor as you are, you at least have the fact that it's not expensive. In layman's terms, good game should get bye bye now.